Wake that up.
LA's #1 hip-hop morning show is Nick Cannon Mornings on Power 106.
Nick Cannon Radio. It's time for another community conversation with someone who's truly a family member of the show. Always dropping great wisdom, information, and jewels on us. And even sometimes our conversation gets a little heated, but in these times, they're needed because this is a time of understanding and a time for resetting in our society, and someone who is at the table, especially when it comes to legislation and so many other things, just being a leader, not only to our community, but to women all around. Senator Kamala Harris, good day.
Good day, Brother Nick.
I'm glad. This is a thing. I always get excited to speak to you, but right now I feel like I need so much guidance. I need not just words of encouragement about our country, but really how to go about this, because obviously I've kind of, it's not bragging by any means, but I've kind of been out there marching and protesting for years, and now I feel like it's finally come to a head. And everyone is having to deal with society, whether it's dealing with race, whether it's dealing with health and wellness, which all narrows down to classism, capitalism, economics. Right. And you've been on many different sides of it. And I just, because I'm truly interested in the Justice and Policing Act that you're presenting. But me being a Howard graduate and having an abolitionist, but having that abolitionist spirit of why do we need law enforcement anyway? And I've asked this to our mayor here in California. I've posed this question to Cuomo in New York. The idea even policing, as we know, goes all the way back to slave patrols, and that idea of enforcing a law instead of upholding a law it's an outdated concept in my opinion. So I'm excited about some of the measures that we could take to better policing, but I feel like we should get rid of policing altogether.
Okay, so I wrote a book back in 2008 talking about what we need to do to also, to your point, remember the history of policing in America, because you are absolutely right that law enforcement, the first question has to be, who are the laws being enforced against, and are they being equally applied?
Right.
A question before that has to be, how are the laws being written? Because we know that it has been the case for hundreds of years that the laws were written in a way that treated Black folks as less than human.
Right.
So, and I'm not going to go through all the history. We all know it. But the reality is that there is good reason for communities to distrust law enforcement based on a history of well-founded, well-documented history.
And current actions as well.
And then we get, and then fast forward to George Floyd or to Breonna Taylor, or we could go on down the list of all of the men and women who have faced death at the hands of law enforcement. And so all of that is absolutely right. And so one of the conversations that has needed to happen for a long time, but is getting a sense of prominence now, that is such an important conversation, is we have to reimagine public safety in America.
Yes.
And by that, I mean this. It's been upside down, which is for too long, people have confused achieving public safety with putting more cops on the street. Instead of understanding you want safe and healthy communities, put jobs in those communities, give people access to health care that they can afford, fund those public schools, give people access to capital to start small businesses. Because you know what? You will then have healthy and safe communities. And the other point is this. And I said this, we just had a press conference about our bill, our justice bill and policing bill. The reality of it is that if you go to middle or upper middle class suburbia, you will not see that police presence
at all.
But what you will see are well-funded schools. What you will see are families that have an income where they can actually get through the end of the month without worrying about whether they have food on the table.
Right.
You will see high rates of home ownership. You will see the fact that people have jobs. You will see the fact that people have access to healthcare and can afford access to healthcare. This is no coincidence. So when we're talking about policing, I think of it in a number of ways. And there is that, which is that we have to redirect the resources. And Nick, you may know this, in many cities in America, over 1/3 of their city budget is paid to policing.
Yes.
Meanwhile, schools are suffering. 2/3 of public school teachers come out of their own pocket to help pay for school supplies. Meanwhile, you're looking at the fact that during this pandemic, up to 90% of minority and owned small businesses did not get the benefit of that PPP.
Right.
The barbershop, the beauty salon, the nail salon. So we have to have this conversation about redirecting resources where they are needed to truly support communities to be healthy and therefore safe. The bill that I am proposing, along with my fellow members from the Congressional Black Caucus, my partner in this in the Senate is Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey, is about accountability and consequence for bad policing. Because we need to focus on that as a specific matter. Right. And so what we're proposing is, for example, we need to change the national standard on use of force, because there have been many prosecutors that have tried to bring these cases, and the proof that is required is so high that it's insurmountable. So what am I talking about? Okay, so for cases of police excessive force, in most jurisdictions, the question that's asked in the courtroom is, was that use of force reasonable? Well, as you and I know, you can find a reason for almost anything.
Right.
The fair question that will lead to justice is to ask, was that use of force necessary? Right?
Right.
So changing the use of force policies around the standards,
all of these things that.
Right. Banning chokeholds, all of that. The other thing is pattern and practice investigations. I did those when I was Attorney General of California, which is that I initiated investigations of law enforcement for patterns and practices of misconduct and discrimination. Well, we need to do that in the United States Department of Justice. And also I'm saying that they should have subpoena powers so that they can actually go after these departments that are not cooperating. So there are a number of things that we are proposing in this package that are all about accountability and consequence for bad policing, but we need to deal with all these other issues as well. And to your point, I do believe this is a moment, and it's a moment where also people are realizing that this is not just Black people's issue. This is everybody's issue.
Right.
That racism is bad for all Americans, that bad policing is bad for all Americans. And I'm heartened to see that, the folks who are taken to the streets reflect all of the people who actually have a lot at stake on this issue, which is all of us.
Well, it's beautiful to see that if there is a silver lining or one thing to be optimistic about is the youth, the generation that is out there in the streets coming together, all colors, all creeds, fighting for what's right. I mean, you're starting to see these conversations amongst children and their parents, and the children sound like the more sensible ones. And when it comes to the idea of like saying it shouldn't matter what color or class, your life is valuable, and it's not like, I feel like the previous generations are comfortable with being policed the way that we've been policed for so long. But now with the concept, and I was in Minneapolis for a few days, and they've come up with this. The city council have come up with this proposal to disband law enforcement in general and go to, as you speak of, public safety from the community in an autonomous way, or in a sovereign sense, that you have to be from the community. And like I said, do away with the word police officer and replace it with peace officer, and someone who's from the community to actually take care of their own, which it feels like, in a utopian society, that would be amazing. Do you feel like that's a concept, once we handle the police matters at hand, that we can get to a place where our community takes care of our community protects our community?
Well, the way that we achieve that is we, one, don't spend over 1/3 of a city's budget on policing when the public schools need those resources, when we need to put resources into mental health, we need to put resources into job training, and we need to put resources into grants to support people to start small businesses. We need to put resources into making sure that we have adequate public health services available to people, be it for substance abuse or be it from any form of mental health treatment. That's how we create safe communities. And so it's about reimagining how you create a society in a way that everyone has as a right health
Right.
and safety, but understanding it's not going to be achieved by militarizing the police. It's
Right.
not going to be achieved by just
We
putting
don't
more
need police
more-
tanks
right. That doesn't work.
Right.
That doesn't work. And so my whole point is to say, look, it's like, frankly, it's ass backwards.
It is.
Because what it's been is about people confusing the concept and then putting money into budgets and requesting money to go into police budgets to create safety.
Right.
When in fact, safety is created by all of these other things that are about economic situations, about public health situations, about education. And back to my point, when you go to the suburbs, upper middle class suburbs, you don't see that police presence, but you see people having resources in the basic needs that we all have to live a healthy quality of life.
Right. And in this moment where we can all say we're pushing reset on society, we've all been a product of this criminal injustice system and like you and I have had conversations. You said one of the reasons you got into it was to try to make a change. Even even your father had some outstanding concepts when it came to how we should deal with a lot of our social issues. But then you also in the past have caught flack because you were in those situations and of being able to, some people considered you the police or the police of the police. And at times it might have felt like, specifically for the Black community, that it was another process of like, yo, this is modern day slavery. This is part of the school to prison pipeline. This is something where we're just putting more and more Black men into cages. And, as someone, like I said, going back to my abolitionist approach, I have no faith in this country. I have no faith in our government or our criminal justice system. So when I see these acts, and even knowing I do believe in legislation and knowing that's where we start with change. But I feel like if we have this opportunity in 2020 to push reset, is there something more we should be demanding than, it's an election year, get out and vote and get out and
for sure.
Yeah,
totally.
Like, is there something more we can do, because lives are being stolen from us right in front of us, public lynching right in front of us at a way that I feel like we've never seen before. So it has to, with all of this great pain, it has to be some kind of great reward to where we can say ultimate change has happened in 2020.
So one of the things that I would maybe part with you on is this. I don't think it's more than we've ever seen before. It is more than some people have seen before.
Right. Well, I'm just saying because of technology and the fact that it's in our face,
right.
and public
exactly
lynchings,
right.
like it's embedded in our minds.
What the rest of the world is seeing, what we've been knowing.
We've been seeing before there was camera phones, yeah.
Right, and nobody believed us.
Right.
Because if they didn't see it themselves, they didn't believe it. I would say to people who come up to me and say, Kamala, what is all of a sudden going on with all this excessive force and police brutality? And I'd say, you sound like a colonist. Like, because you're seeing it for the first time, you think you discovered it.
Right.
No, it's been going on.
Facts.
And so, but so that's not new. It's not new what we're seeing. It's new that people are seeing it.
Right.
And that does create a moment, because now it doesn't have to be that mother crying over her dead son's body. Right. Asking and begging people to understand her pain and the injustice of it. Now people are witnessing what that courageous young 17-year-old leader allowed the world to see. And it has sparked a movement that was a long time in coming, and actually just
Indeed.
the latest iteration of the movement from back to 30 years ago, from Rodney King to back to
30
decades
years,
before Emmett
Emmett
Till.
Till,
And then
right.
back before that to, you go down to the lynching museum, right? Brian
Absolutely.
Stevenson. So this is a moment, but to your point, Nick, about voting, I'm never going to insult you to say, if you vote, everything gets fixed, because it is a righteous response to say we've been voting.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
So the point has to be that you do vote, you have to vote, but also that we have to push leaders to the point that they actually then do something.
Right.
Which is why I say today is an important moment with this bill that is about police accountability, because you have never seen anything like this in the United States Congress. So it is a moment. It is not enough, but it is a moment.
It's a starting
It
place.
has to be.
It's a starting
Say
place.
what?
A good place to start. Yeah.
And long overdue. But it is a starting place. And then we do need to deal with, again, that's just a piece of it, accountability and consequence for bad policing. We still need to deal with the fact that, look at these budgets. Where is the money going?
Right.
Right? We still need to deal. There are so many other things that we still need to deal with. So we have to, so let's deal with them.
Indeed.
Voting does matter, though, by the way. Voting does matter, because I'm going to tell you something. We have not only the White House at stake in November, we have these Senate races. I'm sitting there in the United States Senate on the Judiciary Committee, where they're playing games around politics around the election. And I'm saying we need to have a hearing on the day that George Floyd is being buried, or that he's being memorialized. They're playing political games when it's the Judiciary Committee of the United States Senate that's supposed to concern itself with justice in America. And one of the greatest injustices we just witnessed is not even the topic of the meeting that day.
Wow.
I had to go on the Senate floor that same afternoon, and practically cuss out a member of the United States Senate who would dare stand in the way of our anti-lynching bill.
Wow. So
elections matter, because right now we as Democrats don't hold the majority in the Senate, which means they get to decide what topic we're going to discuss and therefore address. It means they get to decide who's going to be judges who ultimately will hear these cases about police misconduct and decide whether there should be qualified immunity or not.
Right.
Elections matter, and whether we have a Department of Justice who investigates pattern and practice of misconduct by police departments versus Donald Trump's Justice Department that has practically shut those investigations down. So elections really do matter, and they are not enough, but they matter.
Yeah, and I would say you have converted me a little bit in that sense, to where, as someone who's not a fan or subscribes to the two-party system, but I do understand that elections matter, local government matters, and legislation matters. And that's why I even put forth my own legislation, which is called the Black Act. And it's a lot. It's actually very similar to a lot of the things that you propose and support. Everything from, getting rid of lynching to the concepts of holding these cops accountable. We have the I Can't Breathe Act in there, and it's on blackopportunities.com. I would love for you to check it out, and we'll talk about it more. But I always value your time, your wisdom, and your information, and I truly thank you. And keep fighting the good fight, because you are at the table, but I'm ready to flip this table over. But I appreciate all your hard work and just your leadership. So thank you for taking the time again.
I appreciate you. All right, you be well, be safe.
You too.
I'll talk to you later.
All right, love.
Okay.